Hello, and welcome to Book of the Mouse Club, Episode 6, Thursday, August 9th, 2018.
Morning, monsieur.
Where are you off to?
The bookshop. I just finished the most wonderful story about a beanstalk and an ogre and
That's nice. Marie! The baguettes! Hurry up!
I'm sorry, but how can one possibly pay attention to a book with no pictures in it?
My dear child, there are a great many good books in this world without pictures.
I almost bounced clear out of the book. Some bouncing, huh?
Come home or make myself known.
J. Thaddeus Turtle, Esquire. Have you never met him? You will find his story in this delightful little book, The Wind and the Willows.
I've come to return the book I borrowed.
Finished already?
Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new?
Welcome back to Book of the Mouse Club. I'm your host, Courtney, joined by my co-host, Emily, and today we have a very special guest, Aaron Wallace.
Hey, Courtney.
Hey, Courtney, Emily. Thank you for having me. I'm loving your show so far. All of the first few episodes have been so much fun to listen to. I think this is such a great idea for a show, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We are honored that you are our first author interview. I have to say, we did kind of a survey of friends and people we knew that were listeners to podcasts, Disney lovers, kind of put out a call out there, and you were our most requested author. I think I didn't even ask for authors, but just who do you want to hear from, or what are you interested in? At least 6 people mentioned you specifically or your books.
Well, I am genuinely surprised by that, but that is so cool and great to hear.
No, don't be surprised. Courtney introduced me to your book about, was it a year or so ago?
I think so. So, Emily, why don't you give us a little description from the back of the book? I know we shared it on our last episode, and then we can jump into Aaron talking about it.
All right, so I'm just going to read the first part. So for listeners tuning back in, I'm reading this from the back of the Thinking Fan's Guide to Walt Disney World, Magic Kingdom. So a little bit about what Aaron's books are about. This is not the Walt Disney World guidebook for you if you want to run around like a crazy person from dawn to midnight trying to accomplish the superhuman task of seeing everything in Magic Kingdom, if you need a description of every hot dog stand and turkey leg in the park, or if you want a mathematics PhD to guide you through the maze of ticket options. Do yourself a favor, step beyond the rush here, do that frenzy of most guidebooks to truly appreciate the magic behind the attractions.
So I had nothing to do with the writing of that back cover, and it's so funny to me every time I hear it because, it says if you're not the kind of person who wants to plan every minute and rush around and do everything, but I so am that person at heart, or at least was back in the day, so it's not even the guidebook for me. But it is true that in writing a guidebook, I wanted to do something different than that because that's already been so thoroughly covered and excellently covered by so many great guidebooks out there. But yeah, it's just, it's funny because I'm kind of the person it's preaching against.
And you just shared that with Jeff DePaoli, right? On Disney Coast to Coast.
Yes.
Whole episode about planning.
The timing is so apropos.
Well, why don't we just kind of ease in and you tell us a bit about your love for Disney, kind of history. Did you grow up going to the parks? What do you love about the brand?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, definitely a lifelong obsession. I had a very intense passion for Disney as a little kid, and sort of a weird awareness of the corporate side of Disney and what did and did not constitute officially Disney. I don't know why or what brought me into that side of the fandom at such a young age, but I remember as a hobby as a kid, I would make documentaries about Disney on a little VHS camcorder. I was just always very into the history of the company and wanting to learn about it. And then fast forward years later, I remember interviewing for the Disney College program, which I ended up deciding not to do. But during the interview process, I said the corniest line ever, which was that I was raised on a diet of Disney. And I remember the interviewer loved that, but I hate it a little bit. But it's so true. It was just from the time I was a small kid, I really connected, I think, with the big themes that kind of are pervasive throughout Disney's most notable works.
I think you're in safe company here.
Right.
We are also on that Disney diet.
Yes.
And don't worry, we all used really cheesy lines in our DCP interviews. I referenced the 1994 commercial where the girl's like, "I've waited my whole life to meet you." Yeah, I said that on my interview because I was interviewing for entertainment. So I was like, I want to be that. I want to do that.
So this is a great tutorial for anyone who's thinking about applying to the DCP. Like you're hearing from 3 people who are accepted. So just be really, really corny in the interview process.
They always say they can hear your smile. So hopefully you hear ours today. But let's jump in. What inspired you to write a Disney guidebook? I think especially this one in particular, as you hinted at, it is a little unconventional in its nature.
Yeah, so it's sort of a long story. I'll try to make it not so long, but it really goes back to my undergraduate days at UNC Chapel Hill. I was a junior and I had enrolled in a course called Reading Children's Literature. Which was, not only the history of these great novels like Harry Potter, Winnie the Pooh, which you guys just talked about on your last episode, which I loved, by the way, fairy tales. And it was all about like sort of new, innovative, deeper ways to think about the themes that come out of children's literature, which are often very dark and scary and profound, contrary to what people would expect. And I was just so intrigued by all of this, but scholars in that field who study children's literature tend to sort of turn their noses up at Disney as being a watering down of literature, an Americanization of English classics, and so on. But my professor, Dr. Langbauer, who was a scholar in the field and very respected, she didn't take that approach. I mean, she would certainly criticize Disney, but she saw it as very there was a lot to study in Disney's adaptation of children's literature, that was sort of a part of the whole field, and a major part, because for most people, that's how they know children's literature today. And so her take on that really resonated with me. And anyway, every student in this course was required to do a semester-long project. And for mine, I decided to do a video documentary on Disney theme park attractions as adaptations of children's literature, which honestly was just an excuse for me to take a trip to Disney as a college student so that I could, video these things for this groundbreaking documentary, which was, probably didn't look very great because I think this was before cell phone cameras. So I guess I just had a cheap handheld digital camera. Yeah. But anyway, I put together this whole project. There were like 500 students in this class. And at the end of the semester, mine was the one that she picked to show to the class at large. And after she finished showing it, she said goodbye to the class. She called me up to the front and said, "Would you want to teach a class with me next semester?" And I was still an undergraduate. So this was, something that had never crossed my mind at all. And apparently it was against the university rules for that to happen. But she actually went to the department, got them to prove an exception for me to get to teach a sort of spin-off recitation course the following semester, wherein I would guide a team of students to make multimedia projects about Disney and children's literature and the themes that tie them together. At the same time, I was doing something similar in my film studies major, because I was majoring in both English and film studies, where I did a project on Who Framed Roger Rabbit as film noir. And these two professors got together and came to me and said, we think you should do a master's project because this is a really interesting idea, this whole notion that Disney can be worthy of critical study, even though it's this like bastion of American corporate entities. And so they wanted me to do a master's program, and I did not do that. I went to law school instead. But I think all of that research, this intensive year-long research project was floating around in the back of my head. And of course, as I said, I had the passion for Disney, and going into law school, which is such a non-creative 3-year experience, I really just had this yearning to do something creative with all of this research and all of the passion that I had. And I'd been encouraged by those professors. So out of all of that came this book project, where what I realized was that the conversation I was having about what makes children's literature appealing is in many ways the same conversation that I would have about what makes Disney attractions appealing to the millions of people who are now quite obsessed with it, as are all of us.
That's awesome. What I also take from this is I want the Thinking Fan's Guide to Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I had not even thought about that, but I kind of want to do that now too. Because
I feel like there's definitely an audience. That's a cult classic for sure. Much like Hocus Pocus.
Yes.
I volunteer as research assistant. Totally.
And so
gosh.
underappreciated, by the way. Who Framed
It's
Roger
on
Rabbit?
Netflix.
Is it?
now. So yeah, if anyone wants to go watch to get up to speed.
Yeah,
it's out
it was
there.
this major classic. I know I'm getting off subject here, but it was this
No,
major
that's fine.
box office success. It was iconic in popular culture for like a few years, and then just the world moved on. It hasn't really been remembered. Disney has certainly forgotten it, and I know a lot of that is the drama that went down with Steven Spielberg. But it's such a shame. That movie needs to be remembered for the achievement that it was.
I feel like Roger was really prevalent in the parks, and then like you said, kind of wiped out. Like he was in Spectro Magic. There was supposed to be a Roger Rabbit ride at Hollywood Studios. So all things you can get into.
Yeah. It's like the Thanos snap. He's gone.
And since you really don't see him in Walt Disney World, I think people forget that that's even a Disney movie, because it's Mickey or another classic Disney character is not the main focal point. You associate him more, I think, with like Looney Tunes and WB than I would think Disney first, just because you don't see him in the parks or in other propaganda.
Yeah, I bet you a lot of like the average guest or Disney fan probably would not know that he's Disney. Yeah.
I like pointing out in studios, I think his silhouette of jumping through the blinds is still near the Primetime 50s cafe. I try to point that out to people, and then they're like, who? I'm like, oh, heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But yeah, Thinking Fans Guide to Roger Rabbit. Get him back on the map.
There needs to be a Roger Rabbit tour. Like Disney should offer a tour for all of the little hidden references to Roger Rabbit or the places where he used to be. I would take
I feel like it'd be a short tour. It'd be like a 30-minute tour, though.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's Disney. You can charge whatever you want, and people will pay it.
Sign me up.
Cool. So after you decided to write this book, you had all this passion. What's your writing process look like? How are you someone who sits in like a room and you have to like box your ears and listening to music, or do you like to be out and about outside of your home writing? Like, what does that look like for you?
Oh gosh, never in silence. I'm not one of those people who works well in silence. I kind of wish I was, but no, I have to either have music. Yeah, you too.
I can't.
Yeah.
It has to be noisy or something else going on.
I don't. Are you more of like an extrovert, a people person? Because I've wondered if that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, because
I'm a
I
high
am
school
too.
teacher. It kind of has to be.
Question: can the music have words? Because I'm an introvert and I can do music, but it cannot have words. It has to be like classical music or theme park background music without anyone saying anything.
It can have words if it's a song that I've known my whole life, so it really can fall into the background. But if it's new or like a song I'm really into at the moment, then yeah, that would be distracting. Or, but, working like at Starbucks or somewhere just where there's life and people and noise around is where I have to be. But in terms of the process, I mean, it definitely research first, right? So it's a lot of time. Just I want to overstudy, overread, be sure that I've covered everything notable that's out there to the greatest extent that I can. So it's a lot of just pouring through books, trips to the library, a lot of detailed note taking. And then when it gets to the writing process, these days, I really do sort of devote the whole of my attention to the writing. But during that first book, I could not, because I was in law school and did not have a book deal. And so, I could not just be like, well, I'm going to take a sabbatical and go write a book. So it was a lot of just fitting it in wherever I could. And that worked too.
Yeah. I know you said you went to the parks, and here you said you went to the library. What resources or research did you find most helpful through this process?
Gosh, there's a lot that is written about Disneyland. There's not a whole lot that has been written about Magic Kingdom specifically. I thought it was one of the reasons I wanted to do a whole book just on Magic Kingdom. I remember thinking I didn't know if the publisher would go for it. I expected the response to come back and say, we can do a book about Disney World as a whole, but Magic Kingdom alone is too specific. But fortunately, they did go for it. And I wanted to do that just because that park rarely gets looked at as sort of its own achievement, its own experience or artistic statement. Books tend to be either about Disneyland or about Walt Disney World as a whole. But anyway, I did draw a lot on Disneyland, and then a lot on the things that are sort of ancillary to Magic Kingdom and yet very important to the Magic Kingdom experience. So things like children's literature, things like film history, the history of the Walt Disney Studios. So much of what happens in Magic Kingdom is informed by Walt Disney's live action filmmaking, informed by his political interests, his worldview. So there's just a lot of stuff that's sort of outside the parks and yet very much informs the entire Magic Kingdom park experience. So all of that I tried to bring into the research.
No, I feel like I hadn't thought about it until you said it, but yeah, there's so much history out there about Disneyland, I think, because it was something unconventional and brand new to its time, whereas Magic Kingdom followed almost 20 years later, and then everyone thinks about the Walt Disney World Resort as its own entity and everything gets lumped together. So I do like that these are individual approaches.
Yeah, and when people write about Walt Disney World, I mean, even if they are covering the resort as a whole, usually the Magic Kingdom part is, maybe a paragraph or two, and it's just sort of dismissed as, well, it was the Disneyland clone. It was the East Coast Disneyland. And then all of the discussion is about Epcot. And certainly, I mean, Epcot is the genesis of Walt Disney World, and it's maybe the most critically interesting thing in Walt Disney World. But it's just because Epcot draws everyone's attention. There's usually just sort of a passing acknowledgement of Magic Kingdom, and then we move on. So
that's fair. And then Hollywood Studios, becomes its own working studio at the time. That was something new to Florida. And then Animal Kingdom is not a zoo, and lots to talk about there. So that makes sense to me. I'm glad that you, though, did take the time to devote to it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed reading about some attractions that I kind of overlook myself. I was flipping back through it today, and the Frontierland arcade, the shooting arcade. I've never played it. I've gone how many times to Disney World, but I've never really thought about it that much. I was always like, I don't want to spend more money, or shooting games aren't my thing. But things like that.
It's on the official list of attractions. I learned that recently.
Really?
I was on the website. Yeah, because are going to go to Magic Kingdom from open to close. And I was like, we're going to do everything. And I was looking up the list to make it. And then I was like, wait, do we have to do the shooting arcade? That's a thing. It's just you forget, as you said. So it is nice that was included.
Yeah, a few years ago, remember when they did the very first 24-hour day at Walt Disney World? This was a few years back, and it was on a leap day. Yeah, is that right? The first time they did it was when it was on a leap day?
I remember being in college, and I was really tempted to be like, what if I just flew there for the day?
Oh, those were the best. I did that too in college. We had a lot of those, just spur of the moment. Let's, class is over. Let's just drive to Disney World. It was great. But I was there with another podcaster, Matt the Esquire from the Mouse Droppings podcast, and we decided to devote the day to doing what we called leap day attractions. And by that, we meant the kind of attraction you would only do once every 4 years. So it was a lot of that type of thing. The, Astro Orbiter, the Frontierland Shooting Arcade, Tom Sawyer Island, just these attractions that you love, certainly, but they don't necessarily rise to the top of your list on every single trip. And I will tell you, it's such a fun way to spend a day in Magic Kingdom, sort of doing the zig to everyone else's zag. So I would recommend that to anyone who ever has, a spare day, or anyone who's local and wants to kind of do a different style of Magic Kingdom.
Awesome. That's
Day.
our plan for this. Well, we're doing everything, but I'm looking forward. I was telling my friend, I was like, I haven't done Astro Orbiter in 4 years. I think I did it during an EMH night on my college program. I was like, wow, it's been a while. So it'll be nice to be able to do that late at night when it's not as crowded.
I've been on Astro Orbiter once in my 26 years of living. I've only done it one time. And then a kid threw up on the on the car next to us, and we're like, nope, we're gone. Because we're like, we have to ride an elevator with him now.
Oh no,
it's awful. So I'll have to give it another shot, create new memories, erase that one.
And see, now it'll be special because it's not something you've done a lot recently.
All right, I'll put that on my list for February. What is it like getting a book published? What's, to people who have never written or published a book, what does a publishing process look like?
So I imagine it's different for different genres and different publisher, so I can really only speak to the experience that I had. But again, I was in law school. I had written enough of a book to support a book proposal, and that's one thing people may not know is that when you submit to either a publisher directly, which is what I did, or if you're going to submit to a literary agent, you need to submit not only a decent sized excerpt of a book. I did 5 attractions worth plus an introduction, but you also have to put together a business proposal, which is almost like a mini book unto itself. It's very long, very detailed. It is essentially a business plan in addition to a pitch for the subject matter of the book. And so you have to put all that together. I did that. I picked the first choice publisher, which was the Intrepid Traveler, because they were very well established specifically in Disney travel books. And I mean, I knew just as a fan who spent a lot of time in Barnes & Nobles and Books A Million that if you went into those stores and you went to the Disney World travel shelf, that a good number of the books there were Intrepid Travelers. And I'd done some research and I'd found that every Disney book that they published was widely carried in stores, not only nationally, but globally. And so I thought, they have a great reputation. I really respect a lot of the authors they published before. So that's who I want to be with for these books. So I put together a pitch. I sent it to them, and I waited a very, very long time and heard nothing at all. And then one day, gosh, I can't remember how much time passed. I mean, maybe a year, a long time. They called, and it wasn't like, hey, we're going to publish your book. I answered the phone, and they just launched into here's how the editing process is going to be, and this is what we're going to do for promotion. And I had this moment of like, okay, so wait, so you're publishing the book? As if like they thought that phone call had already happened. So then I had to kind of, I was so excited, but I had to disguise that because we were already in the middle of a business call. And from there, it's a lot of editing, which is a very fun but intensive, chaotic process. There are so many people involved. That's what I didn't expect. I kind of thought it would just be, author writes a book, sends it to the editor sends it back, and then you make your final draft and it goes on. But there are many, many rounds, many, many documents, versions of documents, files, and there are typesetters and just lots of people involved from the printer and everything. So it's kind of a chaotic process that extends right up to the very last minute before you have to get it out to the bookstores, and they kind of tell you when that has to be done. You don't set a deadline. Your publisher doesn't so much. The bookstores do, and the distributor. And yeah, that was sort of a jumbled answer, but hopefully
no, that's interesting.
How that process.
To me, I feel like it's not a side you get to see. I mean, like I had heard, you write a proposal, but just all that goes into it and all the different cogs that keep the wheel going, so to speak. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And lots of meetings, but so fun. I mean, so growing up, I was / still am obsessed with Murder, She Wrote, the TV show.
Forever.
Yes.
Yes.
And her character is an author. I mean, she's an author who writes murder mysteries and solves the murders. And I just thought, like as a kid, I just thought that is the dream. Not so much the murder part, but being an author. And so, a lot of in the show when she wasn't around murder, she was in meetings with publishers and agents and that sort of thing. And so I just was living my best Murder, She Wrote life during that whole process.
Like everything
and loving
I need to know, I learned from Murder, She Wrote. Little t-shirt.
Yes.
You can make your golden book off of that.
Yes. Next book right there.
Did you like your editor?
Yes. So the editor who was originally assigned to the book ended up not being who edited it. I think that it changed a couple of times, but it ended up being the owner of Intrepid Traveler, the guy who founded it, a guy named Kelly Monahan, who had been a successful travel author in his own right in his day, and he had really sort of helped launch the I don't want to say the travel book industry, but certainly that part of it that ended up getting on those bookshelves in Barnes & Noble back in the 70s. And so it was really an honor to be working with him, and just such a gentleman and so respectful of my work, but also had so many great ideas. I mean, he would come back to me with criticism, and I think as a creator, you have that initial knee-jerk reaction like, no, you don't understand. But then I would always take a step back, and 9 times out of 10, I would say, actually, no, the book is so much better. I look back at it now and say the book is so much better because of the insights that he brought to my attention. So, I mean, thank God for that process, because ultimately what matters is the strength of the book and the value that it brings to the reader. And I just think that by having more than one person's perspective involved, it ends up better for everybody.
So I know at the beginning you had said when Emily read the back of the book that like wasn't exactly your words. I want to take some time to go into a few questions like about the book, but how would you sum it up in your own words for our audience?
Oh boy. Yeah, this reminds me of the first time I met Lou Mangello, from WDW Radio, because he was on the same publisher. So the Intrepid Traveler had come into Florida, and they took all of their authors out for a dinner to Citricos at Grand Floridian. And I think this was the first time I met Lou. And one of the first things he said to me was, "Give me the elevator pitch for your book." And I had not. So I was just like, it's a book about Disney. I don't know. And that's
sums it up. We're good.
And that's kind of how I'm answering your question now, because I've sort of already forgotten my elevator pitch. But no, I would just say that it's about, why do we respond to these attractions viscerally and passionately, or sometimes antagonistically in the case of Stitch's Great Escape? But what is it that's going on in these attractions that speaks to us? And I guess the argument of the book is that, in the book series, is that these are not mere diversions. They're not, these sort of cheap, fleeting thrills, that they are very much narrative works of art, and that a theme park attraction can be analyzed in much the same way that we think about plays, great works of literature, film. If you go back to the 1960s, there was a burgeoning film studies movement within academia. Prior to that, this notion that you would take film seriously in the way that you take literature, it was really sort of a revolutionary concept and very controversial at the time. There was a lot of pushback against it in academia. And eventually you fast forward a few decades, and now film studies is mainstream, and there are courses or programs available at nearly every major university. And I think we are starting to see that with theme park studies now. There are a few universities that offer a course or two, and I think I think SCAD has a whole program in it, more on like the Imagineering side of things. But it is this slowly developing field. And, while what I've written is not a textbook, does not endeavor to be a textbook. That was one of the things I told the publisher early on. I don't want to write a textbook. I do love the idea that I can affirm, or that we as fans can affirm for ourselves, that we aren't crazy to love these things. We aren't crazy to want to spend a lot of time in this place. There's something going on that speaks to us, and actually it's very complex. And I think once we start peeling back the layers, not only is it fun to kind of revel in your passion, to say like, oh my gosh, like I really do love this stuff, and there's a reason I love it, but you end up at the end of that process loving it so much more because of that.
I think that's what definitely appealed to both Emily and to me, reading through it. I mean, we're both academics at heart. I know we're in more of like a corporate world, but I was an English major. So, analyzing everything in depth, I was like, oh my gosh, it's applying everything I learned through reading and interpreting literature to one of my favorite things in the world, which is really, Disney.
I think what you were just talking about kind of speaks to what Walt was trying to do in the 1950s when he said he wanted to make Disneyland not an amusement park. It's a theme park. It has a lot more thought and storytelling into it, not just the county fair down the street that is the same two attractions that you can ride anywhere or lets you down every time you go.
There's no story to the zipper, but now I have a backstory to that classic carnival attraction. What is
well,
the
that's
story
what's so cool about Disney rides is you can take something like a zipper, or I always point to the merry-go-round because that's where it all kind of started, right? There's the famous, every Disney fan knows the story of Walt with his daughters at Griffith Park at the merry-go-round, and that was the spark of life for Disney theme parks. And yet there is nothing inherently interesting about a nondescript merry-go-round. And so it's so fascinating to see that Walt Disney saw that concept, liked it, and yet his version of that, or of any of these sort of standard issue carnival rides, goes so far and beyond simply because in the same amount of time, in the same 30, 45 seconds that you spend on the ride, a minute, whatever, so much more happens because it's themed. And clearly audiences walk away from those 45 seconds having understood that a story unfolded, but it unfolds in a very different way than it would in a 30-minute episode or a 2-hour movie. And so it's just fascinating to look at even the way that a story can be told in a theme park attraction as its own medium.
It's absolutely true. I took my summer job right now is nannying, and I took the kids to the county fairs. Maryland's going through all their county fairs right now, and they had a spinning teacups. It was not nearly as cool or well done as Disney spinning teacups. It was really disappointing. They had fun, but I was just like, oh, you don't even know.
But isn't that so interesting? I mean, mechanically, it's the same experience, right?
Exactly.
And yet
Yeah.
it's not at all the same experience, and
absolutely.
it's all because of the theme.
And I think Disney even does that itself. I mean, Alien Swirling Saucers, which is new at Toy Story Land, is mechanically the same ride as, what's the Mater one? I'm not at Disneyland a lot.
Mater's Junkyard
Is
Jamboree.
the same as Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, but it's a completely different story, even though the mechanics are identical.
Yeah.
And I think talking about the film studies thing, one of my favorite things within the book that I found myself looking forward to at the end of each chapter, for people who haven't read your book, you go in depth about attractions one by one, broken down by land or area, but each attraction has kind of a reference point, a watch this, something that's inspiring or connected to them. I think some of my favorites was Test Track. You recommend watching Reading Rainbow, and I was like, wait, what? You would never think to put those together, but your description works. I think one of my other favorites was the Tiki Room and the Even Stevens movie. I was like, oh, we're going deep cut into Disney Channel here, so not even just bigger popular culture. So what was your approach to choosing those different things? Because I can tell you're thinking outside of the box on a lot of that.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely by design. I mean, one of my goals is I don't want to present an obvious film choice just because it's obvious. So what's the fun in that? And I just, as a geek, I think one thing that all geeks have in common is that we like a good deep cut, right? So I just want to give other geeks a deep cut. But like you said, there's got to be a thematic connection. So that's what it's really about. So at the end of each attraction, as you said, there's a watch this recommendation of a film or a TV show. And it's not that, necessarily they have the same actor or it's the same IP or whatever, but it's that there's a thematic connection. So there's some relationship between the theme of the ride and the theme of the film, or maybe the way that the theme functions in both. An example is Mary Poppins is the recommendation for Song of the South, or for Splash Mountain, which is based on Song of the South. Those two properties have nothing to do with each other, but the point is that Uncle Remus within the Song of the South story, the function of his character is comparable to that of Mary Poppins. Not to say that they're identical, but that discussion then highlights the significance of Uncle Remus's absence within Splash Mountain and its presentation of the Song of the South story. So when it comes time to come up with these, and it's one of my favorite parts of writing this whole series, it's so much fun. So I have a whiteboard, and I'll just start sort of thinking, like, when I ride this, like, what comes to mind? And then what movies kind of match that feeling or that atmosphere or that setting? And I just make a long list on the whiteboard, and then I go down and say, okay, what really sort of hits the nail on the head here? Yeah, and that's the process.
Yeah, I like that they're not all Disney. Like, you have Meet Me in St. Louis listed for Main Street USA, which I'm like, yes, of course, like the trolley, and they sing the song within there. So not just Disney, but then some really deep cuts. It's a great resource for people to uncover things that they may not even be familiar with. Like, I think it's one of them references Freeway Phobia or something along those lines, which is a goofy cartoon from the 60s that I had never heard of. So I appreciated that.
Well, one of the really gratifying things has been over the years hearing from readers who will write in and say, I watched this movie or this TV show I'd never heard of because you recommended it in the book, and I found it really charming, or I really loved it. And there have been a few people who even told me that they went through the books in order and watched every single this recommendation from beginning to end. And I just love that the series is able to introduce these films, which aren't always like 5-star, all-time greatest, excellent filmmaking, but they often do have something significant to offer. And so I'd say they're worth seeing for sure, especially if you're a Disney fan. A great example is the live-action Tom Sawyer movie. from the 1970s, which is not Disney, but it's the whole Disney production team. Like the Sherman Brothers worked on it. And so it has a very Disney feel. And that's a movie I think a lot of people told me they didn't know existed, had never seen it, but then you watch it and you love it as a Disney fan. I mean, it looks like it was filmed on Tom Sawyer Island. And, I just love that people are finding these movies that don't get talked about very much, and that the book is able to keep them alive for the people who read it.
I really like some of your recommendations for some of Disney's live action, because I feel like most Disney fans are Disney animation fans, like forgetting about Pollyanna or Apple Dumpling Gang. Mm-hmm. My grandmother raised me on Pollyanna. That was one of our staples. So some of those, I think a lot of Disney fans, we don't really dive into the live action side. And Disney has a lot of great live action movies that, I definitely see some of those feelings or the set type or characterizations from those movies in the parks. So those I think were really good recommendations.
Yeah. We as fans need to start a movement where we defend the live action Disney catalog, because just for really since day one, it's always been dismissed as sort of like middling film projects. They were just never given their due. And some of them are kind of throwaways, but a lot of them are really, really good. And they're very charming. And they sort of exist as their own genre. And like you said, Pollyanna, I mean, I grew up loving that. Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Pete's Dragon, Candle Shoe. So many of these live action Disney movies were so special to me growing up. But it's such a shame that I think Disney to some extent perpetuates this itself, that there's a relentless focus on the animation.
But now we're remaking all of the animated films. I
was literally just about to say that.
It's coming back, but I know what you're talking. Those like 70s through like mid 90s are not as respected as they should be.
Yeah. Well, my hope is that the next wave, and this happened, I guess, with Pete's Dragon, though it was not much of a remake. It was kind of a new, inspired by story. But my hope is that we get a boy named Pete. That's about it. Yes, you're right. It checked those two boxes and those two boxes only. But I hope we enter an era eventually where we are remaking the films that were live action to begin with.
Well, and even I like what they're doing with live action properties extending the universe. So not just a remake, but like we kind of saw it with Maleficent, and then now with Christopher Robin as this update. We can't spoil it though. Emily hasn't seen it. We'll get you there.
Yeah. But also Mary Poppins that's coming out in, was it Christmas? The new Mary Poppins is coming out. That's an extension. It's not a remake of Mary Poppins.
I'm so excited for that.
I think we're going to have to do a Mary Poppins episode, too. It fits right in kind of along the lines of what we just did with Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to read.
P.L. Travers.
P.L. Travers.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about the Magic Kingdom one. I do want to touch on my favorite part of the EPCOT book, which is, I loved the book overall, but the dedication absolutely nails it.
I did read that.
So. I don't know if you have your copy handy because you just moved. Do you know it? Can you share it? Or
I pulled out. So because I moved, I was like, why don't I have any copies of my own books around? But I did find the Epcot one. I couldn't find Magic Kingdom anywhere. But this book is dedicated to the Phoenicians. I literally couldn't have done it without you.
I love it. It's perfect. That's my favorite part of Spaceship Earth. Whenever I listen to it in another language, I listen for Danke, the Phoenicians. And I'm like, yes, there it is.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny how that line was really reviled and made fun of by hardcore Disney fans when it first came out. And yet, over the years, there's been a complete 180, and now everyone embraces it and loves it. And it's so funny how reactions can change to things over time, especially with repetition. But yeah, I will say I was really excited to get that dedication out. I was like, I really want people to open the book and see the dedication because I after a decade of Judi Dench imploring me to take the Phoenicians,
you literally did.
I was so thankful that I had a platform to finally bestow upon them the gratitude that Judi Dench had convinced me they deserve. So thank you, Judi Dench.
We would not be here reading these books and talking about them without the Phoenicians. So I think we all need to take a moment to thank.
I don't think you guys would have been English majors at all.
No.
Right? And I think that will be Judi Dench's, lasting achievement is that she made a concrete legacy for the Phoenicians.
I'm still a big Jeremy Irons Spaceship Earth fan, though. That was my Spaceship Earth that I grew up with.
So I wanted to ask more about Epcot. What was it like writing the Epcot book versus Magic Kingdom? Like, was your research process or doing the research, was it easier or harder? Because you were saying earlier there was a lot more people fascinate over Epcot more than the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, it was interesting how different the process was, because what I found fascinating is that Epcot is 11 years younger than Magic Kingdom as a theme park, and yet it has so much more history because so much more has changed in that park than in Magic Kingdom over the course of its life. B, the underpinnings of Epcot go back much further than Magic Kingdom's, what with Walt's plan for the city that he was going to build there and all of that. And then also there's been so much more written about Epcot, as I mentioned earlier. And so even though it's this younger park, there's just a lot more research to be done, a lot more material to move through. And going into it, I thought I was a pretty solid Epcot fan. Like, I felt like I knew a lot about Epcot, and what I realized is I didn't know that much about Epcot, not like I thought I did going into it. And so more than anything, it was just like, as a fan, just a really fun, geeky time of learning all about the little tiny pockets of Epcot history that, didn't last long, or things I wasn't aware of, and just going back and watching ride through videos from the 80s on YouTube and just home videos that people shot of walking around the park. I watched a lot of that just to get a feel for, what did the signs look like? And I mean, I was there early. I was there like late 80s, early 90s, but I'm talking very early Epcot. So yeah, it was a blast to get to research that, to have an excuse and the justification to sit down and spend a lot of time researching Epcot. But I will say that I initially stalled a little bit because I was not sure how to approach it, because I was in sort of the mindset of Magic Kingdom, where the discussion is often about children's literature and how the attractions of Magic Kingdom grew out of that, or how they grew out of film, Walt's films. And that was my academic background, right? I'd studied English, children's literature, film studies, etc. But Epcot, that's not really the case. I mean, it's not a park about adapting literature so much. There's a little bit of that, but not a lot. And it didn't really grow out of Disney films. And so if Magic Kingdom is the realm of fiction and fantasy and all of that, Epcot is the realm of science and history and geography. And that's not where my background was. And so I had this sense right away that the same exact approach would not work for Epcot. It's also laid out very differently. It doesn't have lands, right? It's sort of two parks in one, and then within those parks you have pavilions. So just structurally, it's a very different kind of thing. But what I realize is sort of at the heart of Epcot fandom, it's all these big questions that fans sort of grapple with. What is Epcot's mission? What is its purpose? Is Epcot pure? Was it ever pure? What does it mean for Epcot to be pure? Do characters belong there? If so, what role should they play? Should we have celebrities narrating attractions? Did Epcot change the world? Was that really its mission? Is it silly to talk about a theme park attraction changing the world? Should Frozen be in the middle of World Showcase? Is that a dumbing down of culture? There's all these sort of big debates that fans have every single day on social media, or just walking around the park and talking with fans. And so when I realized that a way to answer those questions could be using the attractions themselves as both the text and the test for answering the questions, that's when I got really excited. That's when it all clicked. And I said, okay, here's a book. And getting to flesh those out for myself. I didn't always necessarily know how I felt about some of those issues until I got in and sort of worked through it. And I think hopefully that comes through in the book is that there's a problem presented, a question presented at the beginning of an attraction, and both sides are considered. And then there are sort of tests or guidelines or research materials that are offered as tools for working through those issues and answering them in a way that hopefully is thoughtful and informed.
Yeah, I remember you have kind of a list of the use of celebrities in attractions, which is another Disney Coast to Coast that you and Jeff DePaoli went in depth on. But that pulled right from here. That was a really interesting discussion. But I do have to point out, you missed the biggest one of all, which was Michael Jackson and Captain EO. Not within the book, but within that discussion.
Within that podcast episode, you're right.
That's Michael Jackson. But he does give you an answer. He says, we are here to change the world. So I think that did change the world.
By the way, I am currently reading a Michael Jackson biography because I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. There are a ton of them out there, but I'm reading one called The Genius of Michael Jackson. It's so good. But I took all of maybe 50, 100 pages for Michael Eisner's name to come up in the book, which I just love. You can't you can't go anywhere without coming across a Michael Eisner name drop. And as it turns out, Captain EO was kind of an important chapter in Michael Jackson's career.
I'll have to read that. What's the title of it?
The Genius of Michael Jackson.
Oh, yeah. I had picked up in the airport, just like flipping through, waiting. I didn't buy it, but it was Angelica Houston's biography. And, usually in biography, there's like a section of pictures in the middle. And one of the pictures was her with Michael Jackson and Captain EO. And I was like, wow, got some recognition right in there. So I'd like to read hers as well.
Oh, my gosh. That film shoot blessed us with some of the all-time great backstage photos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those costumes and then them standing beside people who weren't in costume. And it's just all these icons of the 80s, George Lucas and
Francis Ford Coppola.
Michael Jackson, Angelica Houston. It's just fantastic. And then Whoopi Goldberg was on hand to film the pre-show.
I was going to say her little TV special that she has on YouTube. That is worth looking up. I know Francis Ford Coppola, he has a winery. My boyfriend and I are big fans of his wines, and I'm kind of like secretly holding out that he does a Captain EO wine one day.
And imagine.
Who do I write to about that? I just had the idea. I would collect that bottle.
We need to come up with some really clever wine names that relate to Captain EO and then submit them for consideration.
It can be a Twitter hashtag.
Yes.
Let's get it trending.
Turn it to Twitter. Make up my wine name. So you did hint a little bit and share about how your appreciation for Epcot grew as you were writing and tackling all of those Epcot questions. But was there an attraction in particular that you grew to appreciate more than you did before, either within Magic Kingdom or with the Epcot book?
Gosh, I mean, honestly, every attraction, I feel like I came away with something, realizing something new that I didn't know before and tried to share that with readers in the book. I'm trying to think of one that really stood out in an interesting way.
It wasn't Stitch's Great Escape, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm stumped.
No, that's fine. No, you had a great answer about the Epcot one, but I was curious if at the deeper attraction level is something that you're like, wasn't as big of a
Speedway.
fan.
No.
I will say the very first attraction that I wrote about, I don't think I wrote the chapter in full, but it was Space Mountain. And it was the question of, why is it a mountain? Because it's not in any literal sense a mountain, whereas Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is, and Splash Mountain is, the Matterhorn is, but Space Mountain's not. So why is it one other than just for marketing purposes, which might be the most factual, literal answer. But it occurred to me that it's such an iconic attraction, and especially for younger guests, it's a rite of passage. And so it becomes a mountain in the sense of an achievement, in the Miley Cyrus sense of climbing a mountain. It's
not
the climb.
Sing it. I'm not going to sing it.
And that sort of set me on the path of how to think about these attractions. It's not always what did Disney mean them to be? What did the Imagineers mean them to be? I mean, certainly that's a huge part of it. And the attraction entries typically open with an in-depth history of the attractions. But it's also about, what do we understand the attractions to be? What meaning do they impart onto us? Or what meaning do we make of them, regardless of the meaning that was intended? And this is kind of a concept that comes out of film studies, but this idea that creators make meaning, but audiences make meaning too. And in that sense, audiences are creators of the works they consume. And that was very important for my my take on, or my studying of Epcot, I guess, particularly things like Spaceship Earth and this Steve Jobs animatronic, and the question of, so for those who don't know, there is an animatronic, he's not really an animatronic, he's just a figure, a static figure in Spaceship Earth, but he is often said to be Steve Jobs. But the question is he? Is that Steve Jobs in that scene? It's like a hippie from the 70s at a computer. Is it supposed to be Steve Jobs? And so I have this whole appendix in the back of the book where I get into the different theories as to who it might be and why it might be or might not be him. But ultimately what it comes down to is not so much who is it intended to be, but who do audiences understand it to be? And it's the same thing with Space Mountain. As I was saying, it's a mountain to us, even if it isn't a mountain in a literal sense.
I love that so much, but I'm super biased because that's where I worked on my college
program.
program.
That's right. I'm speaking to a Space Mountain
Preaching
legend.
to the choir out here.
Did you learn anything, Courtney, from the Space Mountain chapter that you didn't already know?
Oh, I don't think so, but I liked the unique approach. Like that, like it really resonated with me as you're saying it's a mountain for child, because it was such a rite of passage. Like standing at greeter and like you see a short child walk up and you're like, oh no, like are they going to make the height requirement? And, you know, sometimes it's tough. They're just too short. But like when that kid clears the height requirement, like they're excited. The parents are excited. Oftentimes I'd hear them say, I remember when I first did Space Mountain, and like just, you know, within our culture, it's about a little over 40 years old now, like how much of a rite of passage it has become.
It doesn't have to just be for young kids. I took some friends on their first trip to Disney World ever, and they were in their mid-20s, and the first thing we rode was Space Mountain.
That's what I did to
get that out of the way.
It was his first trip. He had never been to Disney World, and I was like, come on in. We're going to Space Mountain.
Was he at all like intimidated by the prospect of riding it?
He was, because if you think about it, it's such a mystery. Like you go to Six Flags and you see the track exposed and you're like, all right, this is what I'm getting on. There's 3 loops, blah, blah, blah. And I was actually really mean because he was like, is it scary? And of course I got paid to tell people like, no, you're fine. Like it's a roller coaster in the dark. I had to, you know, have my Disney voice be reassuring. And Doug goes, is it scary? And I go, it's terrifying. I also told him that Spaceship Earth went upside down. So I'm not the best.
You got to break character.
It's fun to do that for new people, but do ease their concerns.
I will tell your listeners that I recently got to ride Space Mountain with the one and only Courtney Guth, and I got the whole VIP experience. Our friend Derek Lewis from the Mad Chatters was with us, and I learned a lot through the tour, like walking through the queue and all of that. So that was really cool.
You can put that in the next edition.
Yes.
Did she also call out all the turns to you as you went on either the Alpha or the Omega track? She does that to me when I ride with her. She's like, left turn, right turn.
I give people the option. I say, I know this track frontwards, backwards. I will sit behind you. I can't remember if we did that, but I can tell people when the drop is coming, where you're going to turn, even though it's very dark inside.
So there are 4 ways to ride Space Mountain. You've got 2 different tracks, and then each have optional commentary by Courtney.
There you go. Well,
director commentary on your Blu-ray DVD.
Yes. Oh, I will say, you know, you asked about an attraction that I view differently through the course of researching. Going back to, again, the episode you guys just did on Winnie the Pooh, you touched on one of my favorite themes in the novels of Winnie the Pooh, which is this blurring of the lines between fantasy and reality. And there's so many layers there because, you know, it's Christopher Robin, who is a real person, who is then fictionalized. He had real toys that he himself within the fictional work fictionalized, but then which are also fictionalized by Disney. But then he has characters who weren't toys. You guys got into a lot of this. He has characters that aren't toys that solely exist in his imagination, but they interact with the ones that are. So it's just sort of mind-blowing to think that you're reading something that is on the surface so simplistic, but is actually so layered and multifaceted. And what I think I came to appreciate so much more about the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which was not necessarily one of my favorite dark rides prior to writing the Magic Kingdom book, was coming to realize how that ride itself adds an additional layer to that narrative just by bringing us into physically and three-dimensionally into book pages. Like you enter that attraction by traveling into a page in a book, which, as you said, does not happen in Disneyland, but it happens in Magic Kingdom. And so the attraction becomes this very meta experience where it's calling our attention to the way that Milne blurred those lines. So in a way, it becomes Disney commenting on the work that it is simultaneously adapting. And I just love that a theme park ride can give you that much to think about on what would otherwise appear to be a very simple experience.
I think we're pretty lucky that because we've gone so many times, or you have to really be a Disney fan, because I know the friends I took for their first time Disney, they were just like, rides, this is fun. Yeah. So I think they need another trip or two to really get them to that level. And I was geeking and like trying to get them to that level maybe a little too soon. And they were like, you need to calm down. I was like, I'm sorry. It's so cool though.
I know. I always spit out facts. I'm like, they're all up in my noggin, and I'm ready to share them because there's so many layers to that. Like it's not just the zipper. There's a story.
Yes.
I have to remind myself.
Tour guide out.
Yeah. I have to turn off my teacher, and I'm a tour guide in Washington D.C. So I have to like turn that hat down a little bit sometimes. I'm like, I'm not on duty. I don't need to do this, but I want to. I want to share. So how is writing these guides? You have talked about you've always had a relationship with Disney. Now that you've published 2 books about the parks, how has that changed? Maybe how you approach the parks, going to the parks, your relationship with Disney in general?
Well, I moved as part of the process of getting the book deal and making Disney a bigger part of my life. I moved from North Carolina to the Walt Disney World area, and so part of that experience has been not just publishing books about Disney, but also just becoming a local, which itself, as you can attest to, Courtney, it fundamentally changes your experience of the parks. I would say not for the better or for the worse. Everything is just different. And so I don't know if I can distinguish, the things that are different because I'm a local versus the things that are different because I wrote about the parks. But I will just say that now that these sort of readings of each attraction are just sort of in the back of my mind, right? And I think that the readings that I've come up with is just one of many, many different ways that you could interpret these attractions. But having that as a foundation, you don't have to actively think about all of that. So then you can just sort of build on it, right? So I'm often picking up on little things and thinking like, oh, that really builds on this earlier idea that I had. And I think in that sense, it's a lifelong experience of rediscovering these attractions and constantly finding new perspectives. And that is the answer to the question that a lot of us Disney fans get. Why do you go so often? Do you not get bored of it? Why do you keep writing those things? And I'm always like, how often do you go to the mall? People go to the mall every week and they don't think that that's repetitive. But anyway.
I think I tweeted once, I either spend my weekends at Walt Disney World or Target. There's no in between.
I'm always baffled by that question. People seem so shocked that you would want to go to Walt Disney World more than once every few years. But just look at all of the other comparatively much more mundane places that people go all the time. I mean, it's one of the grandest spectacles in terms of man-made recreation on the planet. Why would you not want to go fairly often?
Constantly changing. There's always new things, which I think brings me to one of my questions. Magic Kingdom is in its 2nd edition now. What is it like having to approach it and kind of not necessarily rewrite your book, but add more to it? And as things keep adding, the parks are ever changing. There's certainly a lot coming to EPCOT. I expect that'll have another edition at some point too.
Yeah. Well, the 2nd edition of Magic Kingdom was the first project after the first. So before I ever got to EPCOT or Hocus Pocus, it was time to do the 2nd edition. And I wanted to rewrite the whole book. I just wanted to, start over. And my publisher said that's not what a second edition is. So no. So I had to get on board with that. But I love it. Honestly, the parks change so frequently, and print publishing does not change that frequently. But fortunately, I've had the opportunity to keep doing new print runs. When we have to do a new print run, there's always an opportunity to do updates then. And so because of that, there has been a chance to go in and update these things. Actually, I kind of announced this already, but there is a new edition of Magic Kingdom in the works. So the second edition is currently off the market, making way for this new edition, which was supposed to already be out, but because things change so frequently in the park, it's almost done, and then it's, oh no, this other thing has to be changed. But fortunately, we're at a little bit of a Magic Kingdom's taking a little bit of a breather right now, so that'll be coming soon. And then, as you said, big changes are on the horizon for EPCOT. But the nice thing about that is a lot of changes have been announced for EPCOT, but we won't really be seeing for quite a while. So I'm very grateful that discussion that comes up in the EPCOT book, I think, is really the discussion that fans will continue to be having over the next few years as we anticipate and speculate as to what EPCOT 2.0 or 3.0 is going to be.
Do you think you'll ever do a Thinking Fans Guide for Hollywood Studios or for Animal Kingdom?
Yeah, that's definitely part of the plan. Always has been. I mean, my original pitch to the publisher was a 4-book series covering each of the Walt Disney World theme parks. So they optioned the other 3, and that's part of the plan. Hollywood Studios would be a difficult book to write right now. Yeah. A very short book, more of a pamphlet, really. The Thinking Fans pamphlet to Hollywood Studios. But I do eventually want to get there. I want to get everywhere, but there are also a lot of other places I'm really excited about taking this book series. Hocus Pocus was something we'll talk more about this, I guess, in Halloween time maybe, but it's something that I didn't think, or I didn't know if I would get to go in that direction with the book series. And now that I have, and it's been well received, it excites me for all the other different directions that the book series could go in. So there's a whole lot that I want to do with it and a lot that I'm working on. So there's definitely more to come.
Roger Rabbit.
The second we hang up this call.
Start drafting.
So we need to get Roger Rabbit Thinking Fans Guide trending on Twitter, and also that wine label.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you think
will happen?
You'll ever approach the West Coast? I know you said there is a lot out there about Disneyland already, but not so much about Disney California Adventures. So certainly some opportunities there. You have to talk about Superstar Limo, even though it's gone. I want like California Adventure 1.0 and California Adventure 2.0, because that's two completely different books.
Theme parks. You're right. During college, one of my hobbies was just making a spreadsheet that indexed every attraction that ever existed in Disneyland, and it had so many columns. I mean, there were like 25 columns for each row. Each row was an attraction. So suffice it to say, I'm a little bit of a Disneyland geek, and I do have years of research there as well. So it's something I would love to do.
I find myself now, as I grew up coming to Walt Disney World, but now that I live in Florida, we've been going to Disneyland each year. I'm like, oh, grass is greener. Let's hop over there.
I still have never gone.
We'll get you there.
You guys can plan my trip. Tell me what to do.
That's what I tell people who say, it doesn't Disney become less special once you live there. And I think to some extent, yes, it becomes less special in the sense that, I don't lose sleep over the prospect of spending a day at Walt Disney World because it's next door to where I live. So it would be kind of silly if I did lose sleep over it. But I still have other Disney theme parks, and Courtney, you can say the same thing, all over the world that aren't next door to us. And so we can still vacation there and lose sleep with excitement over those. So
I know you took a trip to the Asian parks. Have you been to all of them? All of the international parks?
Everywhere but Paris.
Okay.
So yeah, I did a trip coming up on 2 years ago now. Gosh, I did Shanghai. Actually, I did Disneyland in California, plus Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Tokyo, and then back to Disneyland, California, and then back to Walt Disney World, all in one trip.
You couldn't have just stopped in Paris on the way back.
Believe me, we thought about it. Actually, we originally looked at Alani.
Oh, nice.
It's like at that point we were 2.5 weeks in. It's like, we need to go home.
That's the ultimate Disney trip right there. Instead of doing all 4 parks in one day, you need to do all 6 international parks in like a month.
Yes. Wasn't there a family a few years ago that did all of Magic Kingdom and Disneyland in the same day or something like that?
I feel like I remember, I don't know if it's the 24-hour day, but I remember seeing an article when I worked like on the media side of things about, I think it was a dad and a daughter, and like they started in Florida and then hopped over to California, and I was like, oh man, that's a lot.
It's a lot. Like, I am not worthy. I thought I was a fan, and I'm not even. Those people are true fans.
They made that time difference.
You wrote a
book.
You are a true fan.
Yeah.
No denying that. Do you have any advice for like aspiring Disney authors? Anyone who wants to approach this on their own, whether it be like a guidebook or just a book about Disney in general?
I would say, so I'll show it to you here. Your listeners can't see this, but I keep on my bookshelf this little framed thing that says Ruth Moose Says Right On. Ruth Moose is a poet of some renown in the southeastern region, and she was my first ever writing professor in college, and she gave me this very clip-arty like late 90s, early 2000s clip arty little thing that says Ruth Moose Says Right On, but I leave it out because I think it is the best advice for anyone who's wanting to write about it. Just start and keep writing. It's that Disney quote of the way to get started. What is it? This to stop talking and start doing. That is that Walt quote, right?
Something. Yeah. Well, there's whether or not it's real, we're never quite sure.
Yeah, right. Well,
you can dream it. You can write it. I don't know.
Yeah, if you can
don't be scared of the blank paper.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's someone just emailed me and asked me about this yesterday, and I just said, writing a book's a big project. It ends up being a much bigger project than you thought it was going to be, and you get halfway through and you freak out, and it's very easy to not keep writing. But if you just keep writing, it will turn into something and happen. So that's always my advice: is to just keep moving forward. Gosh, so many.
There we go, throwing it all back in there.
We got Walt, we got Marty, we got lots of inspirational people in there.
Yes.
Okay, so we always try, like your books, give additional resources for people to read. So what is your favorite Disney book?
Well, is this as broadly defined as you guys define it on your show? Whereas
whatever you want to take it as. Open for interpretation.
Gosh, favorite is so daunting. There's.
What is a Disney book you'd like to recommend to our listeners? Does that help? No pressure of favorite then.
Yeah, there's this book called Vinyl Leaves, which is, sort of canon. It's, one of the early, works of Disney scholarship that was done by like a real deal scholar who set out to analyze the parks. And it's very dated. I mean, it's a very old book, but there's just a lot of great insight there. Sort of a dry read, but not as dry as you might expect for a work of scholarship. And not by any means a rosy depiction of the parks, but I think a fair one. So there's that. Disney War. It's very long, but very fascinating. The Imagineering Field Guides. And then there are just so many great books by fans, other great books out there. My friend Kyle Burbank wrote this book called The E-Ticket Life, and he asked me to do the foreword for it. And it's just this collection of very poignant stories of just, sort of life experiences that have happened in the parks, and like his own memoir of how being a Disney Parks fan literally changed his life. And I just love that because of how personal it is. And you don't often see that side of the Disney fandom in a book. I just gave you like 5 books instead of 1, and that's just scratching the surface. There's a lot out there.
We appreciate it. And that's why we're doing this, because I think we're like, we will never run out of things to talk about. The Disney library, in a metaphorical sense, is just so rich and large.
Yeah, it's great.
I think we'll since Aaron did 5, he can be our recommendations for this week.
For sure.
But I will say, I definitely recommend your Thinking Fans Guide to Hocus Pocus. And I do hope you'll join us in October so we can talk about that for Halloween.
I would be honored. And seriously, Courtney, you are forever a part of my memory of publishing that book, because, you know, one of the things you wait for when you release the book is just to see like someone holding it for the first time. And you were that person, and I didn't even know you then. So
I think
it's a small world after all.
I do have to say I was very proud of the caption for said book post on Instagram. It was, "Hello, I want my book. Bonjour,
Yes.
je veux mon livre." I was like, there's no other caption to accompany this book. So we'll probably end up reposting that as we promote it on social media this October.
Yeah,
And it's the first sound clip you downloaded for our intro bite.
I had to cut it because it was bad quality.
But you still have Hocus Pocus in your intro.
I do. I kept. So if you listen to the first episode, it's in there. And then my boyfriend was like, you can't hear that one very well. So I cut it out. And I put when she's like, book.
Nice.
And that's
Nicely
my Bette
done.
Midler impression.
Because I can never do that.
No.
People ask me to say that sometimes, and I can't. My voice can't go up. Yeah.
Just call me and I'll phone in for it.
Can you please record that, and I'll just store the
Just
MP3
play
in my
it.
phone.
It'll be fine.
And I'll pretend it was me.
We'll ventriloquism. Awesome. So Hocus Pocus coming up in a bit, but our next book is another one that was widely requested in that survey that we talked about earlier, which is the Bob Thomas, Walt Disney, an American Original. I think probably the definitive biography on Walt Disney. Emily, do you want to go ahead and share from the back of the book for that to give people a preview?
All right, sure. So from the back of Bob Thomas's Walt Disney. Walt Disney is an American hero, the creator of Mickey Mouse, and a man who changed the face of American culture. His is a success story like no other, a man who developed animated film to an art form and made a massive contribution to the folklore of the world. After years of research, Bob Thomas, biographer of Bing Crosby, Irving Thalberg, Fred Astaire, and William Holden, among other Hollywood legends, produced a definitive biography of the man behind the legend of Disney, the unschooled cartoonist from Kansas City who went bankrupt on his first movie venture and developed into the genius who produced unmatched works of animation and ultimately was the creative spirit of an international entertainment empire that has enchanted generations. Complete with a collection of rare photographs, Walt Disney, an American Original, is a fascinating and inspirational work that captures the spirit of Walt Disney.
That it does. Aaron, have you read this one?
So long ago that I barely remember it, but I remember loving it. So I will have to revisit that so that I am well prepared for your discussion of it, which I can't wait for.
That's what we plan to do as well. I know it's been a few years for each of us, and it's a pretty dense one. So I will say we're going to cover that in a few weeks, but I think give us time to read it. We might have a little bit of a filler episode about Dave Smith's Disney A to Z encyclopedia in the meantime. So lots of fun things to explore there as well.
Caveat, Courtney and I are super excited to talk about this encyclopedia. I know you have every edition.
No, I have 3 copies.
You have
3 out of 5. Not quite there yet.
I only have 1. This was my birthday present to myself, I think 2 years ago. But we reference this all the time, so I know we're excited to talk about it. And Dave Smith is one of my idols. My dream role ever in Disney would be to be a Disney historian at the archives, and I thank him every day for creating that. What is it? What would you call it? It's not an agency. It's not a, I guess, department. I don't know, like what it's considered within the company. But anyways,
I think it just carries on the company's legacy is the best way to sum it up. But yes, lots of exciting things on the horizon. Aaron, are you able to give a preview of when that 3rd edition is coming? I know you said it bumped, or where people can find you, your books, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I always just say if you have my name, you can find me online. My website's AaronWallaceOnline.com, Aaron Wallace on Twitter. I have a newsletter at the bottom of my website. People can go sign up there. I don't send emails out very often, but when I have a release date for the new edition, that's probably the first place it'll go, and then Twitter after that. So if you want to keep up with me, the things I'm doing, you can find me there.
I will sign up for your newsletter. I wasn't aware of that one. So learned something new. You can, of course, find us at Book of the Mouse on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm Courtney_Guth on Twitter and Great Gutsby on Instagram.
And you can find me both on Instagram and Twitter at Emily_McD. McD spelled MICKDE.
Awesome. So we always close the show with a quote, but because we have a guest today, we'd love to leave that responsibility to you, Aaron. So take us out.
Okay, I have chosen a quote that I've talked about a little bit online before, but it's super random and obscure. Again, a deep cut for all the nerds out there.
I expect nothing less.
This comes from a live-action Disney film called Cheetah, directed by Roy E. Disney. I think literally no one has ever watched this movie.
I haven't. I didn't know Roy E. Disney directed a movie.
Yeah, not a lot, but he did a little, and he made this one. And it's a very, very sweet little film. And there's this quote in it that I'm obsessed with. And it's, "Sometimes food tastes best in the mouths of friends." And I think about that all the time. And to me, what it means is, when you love something, you can love it. It means even so much more to you when you can share it with someone else and then see what it means to them or see how they read it or get a new perspective on it from them. And since we're talking about these books that I've written in this episode, I really think of that quote a lot when I'm writing the books, is that it's an opportunity for me to sort of share this food, the Disney attractions, Disney films, whatever, in the mouths of friends or friends who I haven't met yet, but we're connected through Disney fandom. And then I can hear back from them when they write in or respond or, on a podcast with you guys and get other people's perspectives too. And I think that's the beauty of fandom. And it's summed up so poetically in this little movie that no one's ever heard of.
Well, this has been a most enjoyable feast and a welcome addition to my Disney diet. Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, Courtney,
look at
you with the wordplay.
Full circle.
And full circle.
That's what my degree was for. Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to have you back for Halloween in a few months. I know Halloween is just around the corner at Walt Disney World. I will be celebrating on Friday the 17th of August, but lots to explore in the coming months. It's my favorite holiday, so I'm happy to start early.
Yes, so I'm going to be there, by the way, at Magic.
Perfect.
So, super excited. And let me just say very quickly, I'm so glad that your show exists, that you guys are doing this. There are so many Disney podcasts out there that cover so many different facets of the fandom. This is one that had never even occurred to me, would be a podcast. But now that it is, it's like, why wasn't there this already? Because it's such useful, interesting discussion, and you guys are so good at it. So thank you for doing the show. Thank you for having me on. And this has been so much fun.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for being our first author. Our first interview is now under our belt, Courtney.
Yes, we did it. Thank you. We couldn't have asked for a better first guest. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Book of the Mouse Club has no affiliation with the Walt Disney Company. The views and opinions expressed by hosts and participants are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the organizations or companies they happen to work for.